So I know I talk a lot about thrifting, you repurposing what you have, and some of the reason what that we don't wear the clothing that we have in our closets, or even when we're out thrifting, maybe we found something that we love and maybe even need, which would be beneficial because they do try and say, don't just go shopping, try and find something that you need or that will fit into your color scheme. But if the neckline isn't the way that you want it to be, specifically, this is a sleeveless dress, which would be the same of a sleeveless shirt because it's the same principle and it is lined, but we want to lower that just about an inch. So it's the difference of having neckline that's up here and then moving it down to about here, which really makes all the difference in the world. So join me in finding out more about that and hope that you find it useful as you learn to alter or repair your own wardrobe. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow along. As I start the alteration, I'm starting by measuring from my pin up to the neck to know how far I actually want to lower the neckline, because originally I pinned it on the person that's going to be wearing it. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it inside out. But before I can actually do that, I've noticed that there's top stitching around the neckline. And so I really, actually, it's not called top stitching. It's more of like an understitching because it's only a stitch that's on the lining side. And the purpose of this stitch is really to hold all the seam allowance to the lining so that it doesn't roll up. But in order to make a new seam that will be flat, you do have to take these stitches out along the area where you want to alter. So the first step before I can do anything is once again to make friends with that seam ripper and take those stitches out. Once I have pulled out a bit of those stitches, especially up around here, that top stitching, I am going to go ahead and turn this dress inside out. And not totally inside out, actually, I'm talking about between the lining so that you can see the seams. So if you notice the construction of this neckline, it's always good to look at how it was made originally. There's a little bit of interfacing here, black interfacing, and then sewn into this seam is like a plastic stabilizer. So because it is a knit dress, that is what is keeping it in shape so that the neck doesn't stretch out. So I've cut this small piece of fusible black interfacing that I am going to iron down right here. So fusible interfacing means that you iron it on and it sticks to the fabric. And interfacing is basically that stabilizer. So I'm just continuing to press that. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and trim out the excess because I don't need all of this here. And I may be trimming some out a little bit later as well. And always remember when you are ironing this fusible interfacing to keep the fusible side away from your iron because it'll cause quite a bit of havoc on your iron plate, and you'd have to do a little work cleaning it off. So then I'm going to come and measure down for that center. And right now I'm not going to worry about the plastic stabilizing tape. I'm just worried about this seam, and we'll go and move that in a minute. Okay. As I take the dress over to the sewing machine, I'm using that chalk line that I just created. That is going to be my stitch line, and you want to start actually right in the original stitches and then taper outward gradually and come back in to the other side. So I'm just going to stitch along, remove my pins as I go, and those pins are there to keep the two layers together as I'm moving. So I know that I can get into a bad habit of running over pins, which is really bad because it does break needles and it's not good for your feed dogs. So do try to remove them before you get to them, but not too much ahead of time because then your fabric could shift. And then as I'm coming around that corner or that curve, I'm just going to try to begin to ease back into the original seam so that it's a really smooth, even curve there. So once that seam is done being sewn, I'm going to actually just trim that down. So leave a seam allowance, but I'm trimming off the excess. Just with a nice smooth cut. And just trimming out each piece here. So then any extra interfacing, I also just want to peel away and trim that off as well. Once all the excess is trimmed away, then I can turn the dress back right side out and go ahead and take it over to the iron and just begin to iron a really nice flat seam here. Of course, the iron is always going to help you just have a little bit more of a professional look, smooth out any wrinkles. And here I am using, more of a heavy duty steamer, but Rwanda does have several other smaller home irons that aren't quite as pricey as this one. I'm just going to continue to smooth that out. And then if you'll notice the difference that it is as you look on the dress form. So the left image is the original and the right image is actually the new dress. Thank you for watching. You can shop tutorials and classes on my website, naomifeda.net. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, may God sow his love into your heart today.